Go Who's and welcome to the 4-3-4 defense. My name is Deuce Prince. I'm a Charlottesville, Virginia native, lifelong UVA football fan, and former college offensive lineman. And I have two guests on the show tonight that fit almost all of those requirements just for when you got to switch out defensive for offensive for defensive linemen. Two returning guests, you know them, my brothers, James and John Prince. James and John, how are we doing tonight?
Feeling great.
Doing
Can't wait
good.
for football. The fact that it's almost here, man.
Has this offseason felt just as long for you guys as it has for me at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is. It's definitely. I think the increased excitement of this year, especially towards the end, has made this drag on so much more.
Well, both of you guys have had plenty of like life occur since then. Since John was back on the 4-3-4 defense, at least I think the last time you were on here, John, you were still playing college football.
I
So this
was.
is John's emancipated appearance on the 4-3-4 defense. This is the first free August of his life. John, how does it feel, man?
It's weird, I woke up last Saturday and I didn't have really anything going on. It was kind of weird to go out and about, see have some freedom on a Saturday in August, but it'll take some time getting used to.
It's something that does take like a couple of years to reset, and I feel like there are a select group of people who have played the game and kind of understand what this time is like for college football players. And I feel like you two are the perfect people to have on the show for that. So, like, talk me through, James and John, y'all's experiences in fall camp. Like, what was that like going through for 8 years, if we include high school, going through that every single August, getting ready for the season? John, I'll start off with you since you just went through it.
Yeah, so starting with high school, the last time I had played football was, I believe, second grade. And so coming back to football was definitely an adjustment that first fall camp in high school. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, going into college, it's just a whirlwind being thrown at you. I barely even remember my first camp just in college just because there was so much going on and so much happening. But I think the main thing that I take away from camp is really just getting close with your teammates and just being able to hang out with them, kind of forced to all the time. But it really creates a lot of those, like it says, stories or just kind of bonds. Yeah.
James, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I remember my freshman year of college, starting at Howard. If anybody knows the Washington, D.C. area, they know that August in particular is one of the most miserable months you can be in our nation's capital. We used to have, I don't know what the schedules are now for colleges, but our practices would run from 9 to 11:45, maybe to 11:50.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that 11 o'clock rolls around and the sun's fully up and the humidity's been rolling the entire time, you are scorching. Everybody's getting a nice little tan going on, but you are going to be asking for water. And it's just the things that can lead people, if you're not locked in on the practice or locked into the game, that can be an actual major distraction. And especially as a freshman, it was something that I'm like, okay, I got to like focus on the snap, make sure like I know my assignments. I'm not worried about all the external factors that are happening. So it's something that you learn to deal with, and then eventually you kind of get used to it. But it's definitely it was a real eye opening experience for me.
For this Virginia team, there are so many veteran presences, so many guys that are in their senior year and even above. James, as someone who played football into graduate school, into getting your MBA, was the experience different being kind of that seasoned veteran guy who's been around four different fall camps at that point, entering your fifth year? Did what you wanted to get out of camp change from your freshman year or sophomore year?
Yeah, I think I kind of first look back at my time at Delaware, and especially that fall camp after our COVID season.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many guys on our team that had so much experience in their fifth and sixth years, and we had just finished playing an entire season.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't even like we had the months off of winter break and workouts, spring ball, and then summer workouts. It was we had our spring season. It ended in May, and then we had 2 months of working out, and then it was right back into football grind.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of was definitely an interesting challenge, and then learning from those guys about how to take care of your body and understand like the ins and outs of what you have to do, which then I think kind of helped when I got to Indiana State, was just obviously just the understanding of like, okay, like the X's and O's thing isn't something that we don't need to harp on right now, right? It's more about staying healthy, right? Making sure you understand the relationship with your quarterback and the other guys on the offensive line. So as you get older, your objectives absolutely change. When you're a freshman and you're a sophomore, a lot of it is just trying to, make sure that you can get through it, right?
Yeah.
And then as you get more comfortable, then you're trying to being able to, actually show what you can do and be able to compete. Then as a senior, you're trying to bring the rest of those guys along with making sure that you're doing everything that you have to do.
And it's funny, John, during camp, you're so like focused on your side of the ball, learning the scheme, making sure that you're on time for things and stuff like that, that you really don't necessarily spend a lot of time focusing on what the other side of the ball is doing. John is a defensive player. On offense, we're installing our offense, what we want to do, but on defense, you have to kind of wait to see what your opposition does. How does camp on the defensive side of the ball work? At what point do you start integrating, game plans for other teams to get ahead of the season, and how much of it is just kind of the base install?
Yeah, I think, those first couple of weeks of camp, you're just kind of getting your base install in. You're going to have your base nickel. Those are kind of going to be the two things that you kind of get in first. And a lot of it is going to be building off what you installed in the spring and then trying to bring those freshmen around. I think a major point that my defensive line coach, Coach Smith, tried to strip away at was just the basics.
Mm-hmm.
The fall camps that I had him, we started every fall camp the same way. We started with stance and start.
Yeah.
And just trying to make sure that the fundamentals are there, and just trying to understand the fundamentals first before we get into any crazy blitz packages or things like that. Playing in a conference like the Missouri Valley, you tend to get a lot of heavy run scheme and heavy personnels. So I think having kind of that identity as a conference definitely helps. We were able to really perfect a lot of our base packages, our 4-3 and our 4-2-5, and that's kind of really what we were in a majority of the time.
Yeah. And then James, you have in your travels across college football under 3 different coaching staffs, you've had the experience of going to a fall camp and having the entire playbook change. For this Virginia team, the entire staff, for the most part, with the exception of Coach Heffernan leaving for Stanford, but he was replaced internally. Coordinators stay the same. Head coaches have stayed the same. What benefit and how much weight does that carry going into fall camp, knowing it's the same coaches, it's the same personalities, not to mention the same kind of verbiage and scheme?
Well, I think it just allows you to stay in the routine that you've built. Coach football and being successful in a college football program is a lot about consistency. If you can train guys to do the same thing every single day, how we do things, and it just repeats on, then when you have your freshmen or your transfers who come in, they can just hop right along, and they're not learning along with the rest of the group. So when it comes to things like installation packages, understanding what the defense of the week is, or the run play, or the pass protection, you segment, like John was talking about, like you start from the beginning and you slowly build yourself up. You can progress a lot faster if you're, like I said earlier, like your leadership is on the same page and they're able to pick it up, and they can, tell you exactly who we're working to in our ID, what everybody's combos is, and they can do that in their sleep because they've been around it.
Right.
When you have a new program, when you have a new playbook, when you have a new coordinator, new head coach, it changes the routine, and everybody's trying to get adjusted to it, including the coaches, including the rest of the support staff. With this, what the advantage that UVA has this fall is that a lot of the people are still here, and the success that they've seen from last season will be, everybody will know what that took to replicate.
Right.
And
so
you can kind of bring people along, and the people who weren't there would be like, hey, this is how we want to do things.
It's kind of like the difference between like an undergraduate degree in finance and then going for a master's in finance. It's still finance, but when you've been in the program at that school for a certain amount of years, you're expected to know a little bit more and kind of achieve a higher level of mastery. John, you've had a unique experience in that you played a lot of different positions in your college football career, whether it was long snapper, whether it was edge rusher, whether it was interior on the three tech. Talk about those position changes, because Virginia's had a couple guys even on the defensive line change positions, or something even as drastic as guys switching sides of the ball. Going into a camp, say it was the same position that you changed to in the spring, or even different. Talk about going through that in camp.
It can be tough. I think when you're switching sides of the ball, it gets a lot more tougher. Or if you're going from linebacker to safety, or safety to corner to safety, some of those kind of moves up front, it definitely is easier because we preach knowing what all four are doing,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to switch in and out. It's definitely tough being able to adapt your mindset.
Mm.
On the edge, things tend to happen a little slower. You have a little more reaction time, but inside, everything's happening in a split second. That
Okay.
split second faster as a three tech or a nose. So being able to make that transition, and some of the things like your rush lanes, or hearing calls from the backers that mean something to you now, it can definitely be tough. And I think spending extra time reviewing notes or calls or your playbook definitely helps with that transition more.
And for both of you guys, obviously camp is a very physically demanding thing. It's also a very mentally demanding experience. It's almost a month of just nonstop football. You get to a Saturday, there's not a game, there's another scrimmage or another lift, and you're kind of praying for that to be actually to play a team in another jersey. John, what were some of the things that you did to kind of like get through the both monotony but high levels of stress and competitiveness that go on during camp? Was there something that, like, food wise you did to keep it fresh when you're eating at the same mess hall, or something in your routine, music, a sleep pattern? What were some of the things that you did?
Uh, I'll say that as a team, after lunch or dinner, right before our team meeting afterwards, everyone would get into the team meeting room early, and someone would load up a different person's high school huddle tape,
Oh, that's awesome.
and we would go through camp watching everyone's huddle tape. And it would get good if guys were playing against each other, or if someone had a big game against someone else in high school,
Right.
or like if a safety was playing quarterback in high school,
Oh, okay.
or a linebacker was playing tight end and they go out and catch a touchdown.
Hmm.
So those are some of the things we did. I know at Indiana State we would have snow cone truck come by, or
Mm.
we would get like slices of watermelon after practice, and we would try and do those little things to try and keep everybody engaged and entertained.
What about you, James?
Um, Two experiences I remember, both at Delaware. The fall 2021 season, we actually went to a Philadelphia Eagles preseason game against the Steelers,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
that was a really cool experience. Delaware, for those that don't know, is about an hour or so, hour 15 away from Philadelphia. So you have the majority of our guys are from that Pennsylvania, Delaware, Southern New Jersey areas, and then
Hmm.
we had a decent amount of guys who were Steelers fans. So even though it was a preseason game, the fact that we got to watch football and we got to see a lot of guys who guys wanted to be a part of that experience in a couple of years of being in those preseason games, watching those guys try out, watching those guys perform. That was a really fun experience. The drive home was bad. You can imagine trying to get on I-95 with three giant school buses or whatever, but that was fine. And then the other experience I remember was just one year, or our last year at Delaware, we had like a water bouncy house that we put onto the football field,
Oh, that's cool.
and we had one of those like tubs that you would like throw like a football at the target and then dunk somebody. There was like a bunch of obstacle courses, and so like John said, it just kind of breaks up the monotony, because there are days where you forget what day it is. It just goes through, right. It just seems like you've done the same thing over and over. So those kind of moments, when you're not even playing football, they're actually a lot of the moments that you kind of remember enjoying with your teammates. right? Just having so much fun with these guys and understanding that, hey, we're a football team, but it's a lot bigger than that, and we were able to come together and do some really fun things together during camp.
We had John reminded me of something funny. We had the South Carolina watermelon lobbying board, I guess, they crown a watermelon queen for the state of South Carolina. And for whatever reason, the watermelon queen would always come to one practice after camp, and you'd just see all of us like running straight over to this table to grab these slices of watermelon. They're regular watermelon. It's not anything necessarily special, but it's kind of like one of those things where like, man, I haven't seen a girl our age in like a month. But camp is a experience where I imagine Virginia would not be publicly posting clips of this, but it's where tensions get high. Being a podcast that includes both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, John, who's really at fault for the fights during camp?
It's always offensive lineman's fault. It's it's day 10. It's hot. It's tired. And the offensive linemen want to hold and want to give a little shove after the play. Mm-hmm. They just can't help themselves.
Look, we want to get the last violent shove, John.
I feel like in my experience, I feel like there's always like a fight usually between the offensive and defensive linemen, but a lot of times it comes from those wide receiver and cornerback battles, especially those guys when they have to block. Those guys, they love to grab the jerseys and pull them up to their face, or when they get into the fight, they like to grab the face mask or grab the mouthpiece of each other. So like, I feel like when it comes to the skills, I feel like there's more often of a fight with the skill players. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like unless like John's situation, like he stated, both the linemen are just kind of looking at each other like, all right, like let's get through this team period. Like we'll give good work, but like, I got to catch my breath here. Like I've been sweating. My jersey weighs 8 pounds because I've been sweating, the entire day. So
I don't know if you guys found this tactic out as well, but around my like third fall camp, I would just find like one of my boys who was on the defensive line, and we just like sell it WWE style, be like, oh, and just be like we're gonna catch our breath. We're not actually trying to fight. And it's one of those funny things because I don't know if you get Hard Knocks. The first episode came out last night as we're recording this on Thursday night, and notwithstanding Hall absolutely RKOing that guy, like the fights get resolved incredibly quickly. It's one of the most funny things. I'm sure people are like, oh, is this staged because they just made up so quickly? Like John, I'm sure John and James, your experience is probably the same. It's a short memory. Like the next period, basically, it's all done. Basically,
you just everybody understands. Like, okay, like if John and I had an issue on the field or whatever, like, and we have to get a little shove or we have to like throw a punch or whatever, like, we don't want to get this to keep on dragging on because then it actually holds up the rest of practice.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, like let's get it in for like 10, 15 seconds. Everybody can catch their breath. Reload back into it, and then we're going to move on. But like usually it doesn't really happen afterwards where you're in the locker room or you're afterwards. It may linger on for a day, but you'll usually see the guys who are fighting each other, the next week or sitting next to each other in the cafeteria laughing and joking with each other.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those things. It's competition. You want to see it happen. You want to make sure that everybody's safe, but you want guys to compete.
Yeah.
And if guys are allowing another dude to walk all over him or allow another guy to, shove him after the play, that's concerning as a teammate. Like, dude, we want to see you stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And like, understand like, hey, we have your back. Like if something happens, like we're all here, like we'll eventually break up the fight, but we want to see you, stand up for yourself and not take it from your teammate. Because if you're going to take it from one of our teammates, what's going to happen on Saturdays during the regular season?
Yeah. I mean, go for it, John.
I don't know if you guys ever had any of this, but there were a couple times throughout my years where some of the helmets would get locked together.
Oh yes,
and everyone thought it was a fight, and the guys just being head to head, and their helmets are just stuck together.
I feel like the perfect amount is the first day you go full pads. There has to be a little dust up. and then the rest of camp, basically, like you need just one good fracas on the first day of full pads, and then get after it for the rest of the camp and actually focus on ball. But I do feel like you need one because, like James said, like, you know, it is a sign that you care. Like there's a certain give a you know what meter that you need to kind of be on the bleeding edge of. So it's one of the camp is, in hindsight, you're like, man, those were some fun times. They were hard, but they were fun. For Virginia, I'm sure this is a unique experience because they were expecting to load in at least 4 days of travel before the end of camp. So I'll be interested to see how Virginia schedules something like this, where now they will have 4 days in Charlottesville instead of on the way to Rio de Janeiro. James, John, I can't remember, did you guys ever play any like week 1 games that were like significantly farther away, and how did that affect kind of the end of camp going into week 1?
Well, I remember at Delaware, and I feel like this was very common with the CAA back then, was we played Maine one year on like a Thursday night in the I think it was maybe like August 30th or the 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a weird timing because we maybe had started camp on like a Wednesday or a Thursday. So trying to find that timing of like, okay, like we want to get like all of our days of camp in, which usually, you know, is about 20 days or so, but then also make sure that we have enough time to do an actual game week. Right. And then if it's on a Thursday, like how do you, so then that means like we're gonna have to have practice on like a Sunday or a Saturday. And so that, I remember that was a challenging time because we were trying to figure out what if we were going to actually make a difference between when's training camp and when's game week, because school obviously still hadn't started yet. I think the first day of school might have been like that Friday or that Thursday. So when you're coming in, you're trying to balance those different schedules, because then you understand like once classes start, you can't just go, you know, middle of the day, have meetings the entire day, right? Like you got to get everything in early in the morning or everything in the afternoon at night, right? Everybody's got their own classes and all those things with that. So you're trying to get all that stuff done before school starts.
And then John, what about y'all?
We never had any week 1 games like that or week 0 games like that. All of our opening games were either at home or somewhere in the state of Indiana. I know our junior year we opened at Purdue.
Yeah. It's such an interesting thing with camp, because then like James mentioned, classes are almost always going to start the week of the first game, which then completely throws the schedule into chaos. And obviously for Virginia, it's not something where, you know, we're going to be like, oh man, you know, at school is coming up, but whatever. Like they have to be ready to hit that schedule. And it's so interesting to watch how the dynamic, all of a sudden you go from 500 miles an hour in the football world to like maybe 250 miles an hour, and then everything academics wise is getting up to 250 miles an hour. You're registering for classes, you're getting acquainted with everything while getting ready for week 1 of the game. And speaking of week 1 or week 0, there are a lot of really, really awesome traditions that are going to hit the field in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And one thing we wanted to do kind of as the preseason is rolling around here is do a traditions draft. So this is going to be this can be pre-game, this can be post-game, this can be in the middle of the game. You know, say like outside of the ACC, for an example, we'll go Dixieland Delight or Living on a Prayer for Florida. So we're going to do 3 rounds. John, as the youngest, you've typically been the person to go last, but this time we're going to give you the first go-around. James, for the middle child, you've usually been in the middle. I'm going to give you the back end of the snake draft here, so you're going to be able to go twice. I will be the middle child in this draft. So, John, you were up first. Before we started recording, it seemed like there was an obvious first choice. I will be interested to see what that ends up being. John?
Unfortunately, I know the channel we're on. Unfortunately, at number 1, I am taking Enter Sandman.
Oh, interesting.
I feel like that's not that surprising, Deuce. Come on.
No,
I feel like that
I actually had a 1-1 that was not Enter Sandman.
And Enter Sandman, in my opinion, is probably, if not top, it's probably top three entrances in college football.
I wouldn't
Like you
disagree with
think you
that.
think of the first game like they had back from COVID. I think it was against Clemson. That night game, like it's one of the most electrifying atmospheres.
Flowers where they're due. They do an incredible job. It's not something that Virginia fans, in my opinion, should put down. It's something that we should strive to try and emulate and surpass. So, to Eric
Totally.
Ward, to Tony Elliott, to Justin Sparrows, let's try and figure out something we can do to match that energy. Hopefully, a Scott Stadium sellout will foster something to come up during that Week 0 game against NC State, but for my pick, for the second pick, I actually have my 1-1, my first overall pick left, and I am going to go Chief Osceola at Florida State with the war chant going. I find that is the best pregame tradition in all of college football. There's nothing quite like it in Tallahassee when everyone is going crazy down there. So I still get my 1-1.
That was my number two pick.
Okay.
Well, all right, so that's fine. You guys take my top two picks. No big deal.
You get the snake. You're good.
I get the snake. So for my first pick, I'm gonna go with Clemson going into the bus, driving around the half of the stadium, coming out in full pads off of the bus, touching Hodge Rock, and sprinting down the hill. To me, it seems like it was such a. I have, unfortunately, I know you, Deuce, have been on the other side of that. You got to see that in person, right? But it does seem like that's an environment where, everybody is juiced up. And when you're watching those days of the Trevor Lawrence era of Clemson, the mid 2010s, and they would have those night games on ESPN, and you're just watching the crowd slowly build up in anticipation. And then as they come out, and it's just electric, like that is something that I think is an incredible tradition. And then following that up, I'm a little torn, but unfortunately, I am going to steal this because I'm sure you guys had this next. It's going to be, I don't know if we can count this as still as a tradition, but I'll say Caveman, and then in parentheses, The Adventures of Caveman.
That was on my list. That was my next pick.
the transition of going from a horribly cheesy, mid 2000s cartoon edit of Caveman maybe slicing his saber against the Maryland Terp, and then him jumping onto the saber in Monticello or like on the lawn, not counting all the geographical inaccuracies of where he stops and all these different places of how he gets to each different stop. But then you see him coming through the tunnel, and then it transitions into him timing the actual Caveman, timing it up, running out onto the field with saber. Like that is an incredible tradition that, as we all know, would get us extremely hype as kids.
Shout out to Kim on the horse, always timing that up so perfectly in his years on saber. They've done an amazing job with that. For my second pick, I'm going to keep it within the Sunshine State because there is a mystique to this which is now coming back. My boy Tony from the Talking Game podcast is going to be very happy that I was able to pick this one, running through the smoke at the University of Miami. Now that they're now back to being the U again, there is something really special. I wish it could be in the Orange Bowl. Marlins Park has unfortunately ruined that, but running through the smoke at Miami is my second round pick.
I am going to take something I think is a little underrated. Now, it's all of the picks above it are correct.
Okay.
Are above it. But I'm going to take the Ramblin' Wreck at Georgia Tech.
Ooh. And John got the alliteration perfect on the first try. That can tongue twist a couple people.
I think the car is super cool riding on that front entrance with. It just adds like a certain mystique to Georgia Tech football. I think it's really cool. And for my last pick, one that I don't think many people will have, I'm going to go with the bandana four wells
That was my next
tribute
pick.
Boston College does.
That was my next
So
pick.
I think that is one of the best tributes in college football, and
Mhm.
the way it is perfectly done, with maybe like the accessories and the little accents and the nameplate. It's not overly done where it overtakes the entire uniform. It stays on brand. And it really pays tribute to someone who is special. So I think the four wells is really cool.
I have to concur. I think that would have been a travesty if it wasn't on there. To our viewers, if you don't know, myself, James, and John, we all went to high school in Westchester, New York, in close proximity to New York City. Our high school offensive line coach at that time was in one of the towers and passed away. So we always did something very similar for September the 11th. So whenever we watch Boston College, that's something that is like, that's the peak of how to memorialize that day correctly. R.I.P. Wells, that is an incredible story. I think I'm glad we were able to get it on there. Now that I'm up and John has completely stolen my third round pick, I thought I was going to be able to get that one in. I am going to go with the motorcycle Hell's Angel Demon Deacon. I actually think in the vein of John's Ramblin' Wreck, we've had a chance to watch a lot of Wake Forest football at Virginia for some reason. Even though we're supposed to be shuffling the schedule in a 18-team conference, we always end up against Wake Forest for some reason. So I do appreciate the Demon Deacon on the motorcycle. Kind of scratches that Willie the Wildcat itch that we had at Kansas State where he would ride out on Harley Day.
Man. Well, you guys took a lot of my good ones. I will say the one I had, the last one I had, just in case, break glass in case of emergency. This is a non-traditional ACC school, and that is Stanford.
Okay.
And it's going to be the burial. It's when the Stanford marching band does a mock execution of the cow bear, Oski the bear,
Oh my God.
during the week of the matchup. And the reason that I picked this one because at first my initial pick, which I thought it was a little bit more funny, was of Cal was driving a golf cart around on the field a la Marshawn Lynch style. But I thought let me do with something a little bit more history, although that one is great. But I would say the burial, as they call it, from Stanford.
Man, I don't know.
This was tough. It was hard. It was hard to pick after you guys had made some great selections. It was hard to pick what the next one would be, but I thought this was a really good tradition, especially because Cal Stanford is one of the best rivalries for two schools that people don't view as football, passionate fans.
Yeah.
As we've seen, when Cal hosted College Game Day or when Stanford had Andrew Luck and McCaffrey, like when they're good, when those teams are good, that game is really exciting to be a part of.
Man, and there are a lot of good, like you could, if you wanted to dig deep, you could do a fourth round. You've got Peruna at SMU. You've got whatever jackass ram they bring out for UNC. You've got the ties to the Iroquois Nation and Ernie Davis and Jim Brown at Syracuse. You've got everything that's associated with Pitt, whether it's Renegade, because I don't know, do they play Renegade at Pitt games?
They sing Sweet Caroline between the third and fourth quarters.
Okay. There is no shortage of good traditions in the ACC. Drop down in the comments which ones you think should have made the cut. I think we got kind of the cream of the crop there. I'm happy.
I will give two honorable mentions before we move on.
Okay.
That I think deserve to be talked about, especially on this channel. The good old song deserves a mention.
Yes.
Here. I was shocked you didn't take it. And a little more of a fun one from a new ACC team, SMU popping the champagne after they get a turnover.
Yes.
Popping the fake champagne on the sideline, I think, is so fun and so cool and very SMU.
Musical for me style is going to be the Rock and Roll Part 2 UVA Go Who's Go. That one is something that I'm sure all UVA fans have grown up with. And when we were up 27-7 on Virginia Tech in Scott Stadium, I'm sitting there My girlfriend Sam and her mom are freezing their butt off, and I am like the happiest I have ever been in my entire life when that song came on. Sam caught a video of it. That would be I love the good old song, but definitely that would be my favorite. We've got another kind of fun preseason thing here. We've got some superlatives coming up here for the Atlantic Coast Conference. So we've got 5 different categories. 3 are based on the team and 2 are based on the player. So we're going to start off with the surprise team in the ACC. Previously, John went first. James, you are now going to be first. We're keeping James out of the middle as we like to do here on the 4-3-4. So James, who is your surprise team?
Well, there's a reason I wore this hat today, because I've wanted to, do some repping for Georgia and for A-Town. My surprise team is going to be Georgia Tech.
Oh, okay.
I find it very interesting. You look at their schedule. So they open up home against Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're at home against Tennessee. Then they play Mercer, at Stanford, Duke, Tech, BC, Pitt, Louisville, Clemson, Wake, and Georgia. I'd say the Clemson and the Louisville game are probably are going to be the 2 hardest ACC games for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they squeak out, like, let's say the rest of those wins, and then maybe they have a close game against Tennessee, they handle the rest of their games, and then maybe they split either that Louisville game, lose to Clemson, you're looking at a team that's going into Georgia definitely within the top 25 rankings.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely with a school that could have a conversation, depending on how the other teams play out, with maybe only 1 loss in the ACC that could be appearing in the championship. We all know, obviously, last year how crazy, the fact that Duke was able to appear in the ACC championship. Like, this league gets competitive, especially at the top, with all these schools that have to face each other, and maybe it's the ones that don't. Georgia Tech has an advantage. They don't have to play Miami. They don't have to play SMU. They don't have to play UVA. So there's a real opportunity where they could sneak in there at the end of the year.
They start off hard on their schedule, and then they finish with a hard game against Georgia. But in the middle, they could catch some momentum by the time they play clean old-fashioned hate. 2 years ago, that game, I feel like that could have been like a complete timeline shift if Georgia Tech wins that overtime game against Georgia. And, maybe there's just Mendoza magic. We'll have to see going into this fall. John, you are now up. This is not a draft necessarily. You can go different, but you can also pick the same team.
I also had Georgia Tech for the main reason of Justice Haynes.
Oh, okay.
Justice Haynes, I think, could be one of the best running backs in the country, if not one of the best players in the country this year. In such a run-heavy offense like Georgia Tech, I think this kind of system coming from Michigan, I think this kind of system can really have a breakout year and do some great things.
For my breakout team, this is a team that I've kind of been beating the drum for a little bit, and this is purely a coaching play and then a spite play on the part of the quarterback. I'm going to go with the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. I loved what they did last year, turning what was really a depleted roster into, I think it was a 9-win. I think it went 9-4. They had a really darn good football season with Jake Dickert at the helm there. Gio Lopez is coming over from UNC. That could be an all-time revenge season. It would have been an all-time revenge game, but for some reason Wake does not play UNC this year. That would have been a chance for Gio Lopez to go absolutely insane that game. But I'm going to go with Wake Forest. I think that's going to be another heavyweight bout when Virginia goes down to Winston-Salem. Up next, we have the letdown team. This is the team that is being built up right now, or we feel like is going to be pretty strong, and then might just not come out of the gate strong, and it might go wrong. James, who do you have for your letdown team?
So, how I mentioned how Tech has, a pretty considerable or pretty advantage ACC schedule. I'm going to go with a school that has the opposite. That's actually, I think, when I looked at the preseason. The ACC predictions, they were actually voted, I think, by twice to finish in first, and that's Florida State.
Ooh, okay.
So you look at their schedule, they have Alabama, some of the other top teams that they play UVA, they play Louisville, they play Clemson, they play Miami, and they play Florida. Now, obviously they were able to catch Alabama. What was that, last year or 2 years ago? Right. They've
Last
had some
year.
last year. They've had success against Florida over these past years with them being in a down slump. But those are two games where Alabama's definitely looking to reload. Florida, obviously, with a new head coach, they can make some moves here in the SEC. I just think the fact that they're going to have to play four of the five top teams in the ACC this year, I think that's going to be very difficult for them to face. And I don't know if they could get to 8 wins by the time that Florida game comes around, or nine wins. I think that would be a success just with how hard this schedule is. But I don't think they will. So I think this will be a disappointing season for them.
It will be objectively a really good outcome compared to where they've been, and that still might not be enough to save Mike Norvell's job. That's the crazy part.
Right. Yeah. Like for them, I think the expectations is that they want to be in the ACC championship game.
That might be the only thing that might save it.
Right. Exactly. I think anything else other than that may cost him his job. So yeah.
John, who is your letdown team?
I think everyone on this channel is going to love this. It is Virginia Tech.
Ooh.
I understand. I understand the hype,
Mhm.
but I don't see it with their schedule, especially on the back half. Looking at the front half, Old Dominion isn't a rollover team anymore.
No.
Especially when they go and play these Power Four teams. They beat Tech last time, if I'm not mistaken.
They put BTA.
And then down the stretch, in late October and November, they have Georgia Tech, Clemson, SMU, Miami, and Virginia. That's a tough stretch at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I think it'll take time. What James Franklin wants to build at Virginia Tech, I think he could do it. They certainly have the resources and the history to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely have the coaches. Shout out Patrick Shepard, Coach Shep, who was my special teams coordinator at Indiana State, now the special teams coordinator at Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're being hyped up way too fast.
I think the last episode we did our bold predictions, what bowl games. I think that lines up with Pinstripe Bowl, or do you see them not bowling at all?
I see them bowling. I think there's a couple games, especially early on. They play VMI, Maryland, Boston College, Cal, and Stanford, and then Pitt's a toss-up for me. But yeah. There's definitely some. There's definitely some games in there they will win in conference, but I just think down the stretch it'll be tough to put something together.
My Citadel and UVA affiliations have me so torn for that VMI game. My college head coach, Brent Thompson, is now the offensive coordinator at VMI. They're going back to the triple option, so I may just have to say do it for beating Virginia Tech's sake. I might be go Keydets when Virginia Tech hosts VMI. My letdown team, this is a team that I have kind of carved myself out a niche for being a hater on in the college football media space. And I don't necessarily hate them, and I really like the city. It's about 90 minutes south of John in Louisville, Kentucky. I think the Louisville Cardinals are one of the most consistently overrated teams in college football. Every single year, they are in the top 25, and then every single year, they play what I can only describe as a week 2, fourth quarter preseason for 60 minutes. Like, if you watch the Clemson-Louisville game last year, it was a crime against football. And Louisville gets in these games, they get ranked, and they just cannot do it. I just think they're on cruise control right now to be in the Boca Raton Bowl every single year, and I am admittedly a hater of them until I see otherwise. Up next, we've got the top team. This is a team that we think is going to be just the most dominant and kind of run the table throughout the ACC. James, who do you have as your top team?
I think the easy answer for me would just to say Miami. I think when you just look at all the pieces that they've kept, I think Malachi Toney is arguably one of the few players in college football that you can describe as like game changing or game breaking.
Yeah.
Like he's someone that can just take over the game by himself. I think, and then the fact that it'll be interesting to see with Darius Mensa, like if he can step up from his. I think he played great at Duke. I think it'll just be able to see interesting to see like what he does in his next step as a college quarterback. But I really would like to see SMU do well,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think that they will be competing either against Miami or hopefully against UVA in the ACC championship. I think that they're a team that, with Kevin Jennings, like they're going to be a team that I think that has had a lot of experience, and they're at that point now where they're just like ready to break through.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're going to have a season similar, not so similar to what UVA had last season,
Mm.
where despite them being, I think right now, I mean, they were predicted, like they have the second most votes in the conference right now. But I do feel like a lot of people around the country are still underrating SMU as a program in general. So I do think, Miami is clearly, I think, going to be the dominant team, but I would definitely still keep an eye out for SMU to make some moves here.
John, what about you?
I think it's Miami.
Yeah.
Having just been to a national championship and we're plays away from winning it, getting Darius Minson, I keep keeping Malachi Tony, and he's only going to get even better. I think James hit on it. I think the ACC runs through them.
Mm. I think I'm going to keep this short because I think I'm going with Miami as well. This is a team that I think is really solid all around. I will be interested to see how they replace some of the production that they had on the defensive side of the ball, especially at the edge position, but that's also a position that Miami has historically always had really high production from. So my concerns are assuaged. I'm also with James. I think SMU is going to be really, really good this year. There's no real concern in my mind about the Ponies being able to get back to that kind of conference championship level appearance. Up next, we're now switching over to players. This is going to be a breakout player that is not necessarily being talked about very much in the college football space, but you want to highlight. James, who is going to be your breakout player?
I have Peyton Lewis, the transfer from Tennessee for UVA. Obviously, we know how successful Virginia was at running the ball last year, not only with Jamari Taylor, but just the plethora of running backs that they had in that room that you could call on anybody, and those guys stepped up week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that UVA reloaded with a lot of really good talent on this team as well. I think he's someone that, he had 7 touchdowns at Tennessee, but wasn't exactly lighting the stat sheet up in terms of yardage.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this could be a year for him and a year for this program where they look at him as someone like Taylor and be like, okay, if you're healthy and you're feeling good, we're going to try to give you the ball, 15, 20 times a game and expect you that you're going to be our workhorse. You're going to be the guy that take over the running game for us for this offense. So I'm very excited to see how he does this season.
Nice. I couldn't agree more. I think he's going to be, and we're also focused on the depth of that running back room that I think we forget that the top end of it is just really good. John, What about you?
He's already kind of been he's been playing. He played good last year. I think he's going to take the next step to elite. I think CJ Bailey at NC State.
Ooh, okay.
He was really good last year. I think he had around 3,000 yards, but I think this year, and I'm not sure how they'll do as a team. I'm not really sure how their defense is, but I think him individually, whether it's running or throwing, he's definitely going to take the next step. And I wouldn't be shocked if after this season he has some votes for conference player and potentially moves on to a national contender.
I think I've been watching a lot of CJ Bailey film and getting ready for week 0, and he's been, from what I saw, very smart with the football. He's an athlete, but it's not like, he is an athlete who just so happens to be playing quarterback. He's a quarterback who also happens to be an athlete. So I'm a big fan of him. I think we're going to have to be on our A game for my breakout pick. This guy already kind of had a bit of a breakout last year, but did so in, I would say, relative market obscurity. He's going to a team that has a defined number 1 who is that game-breaking player, but they're always going to be double-teaming Malachi Tony. That's going to leave Cooper Barkate from Duke, who was playing with Darian Mensah last year, in single coverage, if not wide open, and he was an outstanding player. He was a great receiver at Harvard before Duke and has kind of just ascended the ranks, and whether you look at guys like Braxton Berrios or all the other kind of funky slot receivers that Miami has had over the years, these guys tend to do well in Miami under Mario Cristobal, so I'm going to go with Cooper Barkate. Up next, the most dominant player. This is going to be the guy who you might already see coming, but he's just going to be as good as advertised. James, who's going to be your most dominant player?
So I actually had two guys, both from the same team and both on the same side of the ball. First, it was going to be Will Helt,
Ooh, okay.
defensive end from Clemson. He's actually from here. He's from Indianapolis, went to Carmel High School. I've actually had the pleasure to play basketball with his older brother, who was a Division II wrestling champion at Wabash. But he started at Purdue, made his way over to Clemson, and has had productive years. And I think he's going to take that next step. And he's probably looking to be in the top 20 of the top 20 in the picks for an NFL draft. And the other guy that I had, who I think is probably going to be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, is Sammy Brown, the linebacker for Clemson.
Okay.
He was ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year his freshman year. Sophomore year, he takes that next step, was first team All ACC. I mean, this is a guy that I think a lot of these draft models have had him picked as either a top 5, either at that 4 or 5, or at least no further than top 10. And he is someone that I think anytime you go into a game and you're facing a guy, even just with both of these guys, but especially at the linebacker position, this is someone at the beginning of the week, the coaches take like an extra 5-10 minutes to be like, listen, then they have the little red dot on the screen. If we don't, double team this guy, if we don't figure out how to stop this guy, he's going to ruin this game on the defensive side of the ball. So I think the two players, of Malachi Tony being the offensive game wrecker, Sammy Brown being the defensive game wrecker, those are two guys. And then obviously with Will Helt, I think Clemson on defense is going to be very stout, and I think they're going to be very successful on that side of the ball.
Oh, those defensive game breakers are always, as we know, James, on the offensive line, those are the guys that you do spend that extra time on. And it's like, if we don't figure out a way to manage this guy in the game, then there's no use putting anything else together. Yeah. John, what about you? We can go one offensive, one defensive as well.
My defensive pick was Will Helt.
Oh, okay.
That was my number one pick. He had 7.5 sacks last year, 15 TFLs. I think he is absolutely phenomenal. But to talk about a guy that hasn't been talked about yet, a guy who got hurt late last year, and I think is a reason why they didn't go further, Cam Robinson.
Yes.
And if he stays healthy this year, which I'm sure he will, can absolutely take Virginia to the next level and those playoff aspirations that they have.
Yeah.
Having him in the middle of that defense is such a game changer for what they're able to do, what plays and stunts they're able to call. I think that he is – I think they really missed him down the stretch.
Yes.
Especially in the ACC championship. But being able to have him back will be a complete game changer.
And then, John, do you have anyone on the offensive side of the ball, or are we going Cam?
I think I'd like to go with Cam for defense, but offensively, I really like Louisville's running back. I can't remember his exact name right now.
Isaac Brown.
Isaac Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal for them last year, especially when they had a bunch of question marks at quarterback with guys getting hurt, who's going to play, who wasn't. He was super consistent in their offense, and I know Jeff Brown loves to run the football. I think they're just going to continue to do that with him as the workhorse.
And then to round it out on the offensive side of the ball, I am going to go with someone who you can't really track on a stat sheet all that well, but someone who I think is going to be dominant in the game just as much. And I'm going to go with Mikhail Boley at the offensive line left tackle spot for the University of Virginia. This is an elder statesman to the nth degree, going to be protecting Bo Pribula's blind side. I think that this offensive line group is going to be absolutely humming. I think that you could very well make this pick for all 5 guys on the UVA offensive line. But I'm going to go with Mikhail Boley. I think he's going to have a truly outstanding season, trying to improve his draft stock a little bit this year, so he's going to want to put some good tape out there. And I know I was hating on this team before, but this is the one guy who I truly, genuinely believe is a problem, and that's Caleb Lubin. This guy for the Louisville Cardinals is an absolute issue on the field. He gave both our tackles at Virginia last year an absolute hell of a time throughout the game. He is one of like Louisville as a team, I'm not a huge believer in. However, they do produce special talents, and Kleb Lubin is one of those guys. So that rounds out our top breakout picks, our superlatives for the ACC. Let us know what we got right, what we got wrong, what you would do on your superlative list. James, John, thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been a very active period of life for all three of us. John just started in his career after football. He's doing an awesome job getting settled in over at Toyota. James is getting married in a little bit, so that is going to be, if you see there on the bottom right of your screen, we're live Saturdays for Virginia games. I think we will all understand that that is going to be one of the days where we are not live while I am going to be watching James get married. Super awesome and super excited for both of them. Guys, where can the good people find you? John, I'll start off first.
Yeah, not very active on Twitter, but like it says, John Prince _29. And then on Instagram, where I'm much more active, JP1529.
And James, what about you?
Yeah, Twitter, you can find me at _James Prince _. And then on Instagram, I have 2 accounts. My main public page that I use for my offensive line training is JP77 OL training. There you can see a lot of the guys that I've been showcasing. I've been blessed to be able to work with. It's very exciting now. We're in the part of that year for high schoolers where they're getting to start school and they're getting that first taste of camp and everything. So it's been exciting to see, the guys that we've been able to work through all offseason, get to see them finally get to put the pads on.
It's nice to still be kind of connected to the game in some way. John right now, he just got out of it. That camp conversation we had earlier in the episode, he just lived that. So no expectation on him. We'll give it 3 years, but for guys like us, whether it's this show or whether it's the trainings that James does, it's great to be connected back to the game. To our viewers, if you've made it this far, it's clear that you love UVA football and appreciate what we do here on the 4-3-4 defense. So please like, share, subscribe, follow us on all socials, follow James, follow John. They're awesome people. I'm a little biased, but I'll still say it the same. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Go Hoos and have a great night.